When left unmanaged, conflict can create havoc on your team. Employees' interpersonal issues can stand in the way of effective communication and collaboration. It can create an environment that feels tense, hostile, or even toxic. When managed well, conflict brings issues to team members' awareness and inspires honest dialogue. It facilitates problem solving, creates new understanding, and encourages team members to learn how to work better together. As a manager, your leadership and conflict resolution skills are instrumental. How you handle conflict can determine whether conflict unravels your team or makes it stronger. Your team will be looking at you for direction, and you can look to the following tips and techniques for guidance. First, let's start with the basics. Bring the employees who are involved in the conflict together for discussion. Always set ground rules for the discussion before you begin. Ground rules are your code of conduct, or rules for conversation. Get team members to agree on how they will talk about the problem. For example, you should always make a ground rule that says each person treats the other party with respect. Or another good idea for a ground rule is no interrupting the other person while they're speaking. Use your authority to set some basic ground rules. Then invite employees to add a few of their own. The only rule on ground rules is that before discussions can continue, all parties must agree on the ground rules and verbalize their commitment to adhere to them. Another tip for conflict resolution is to let each person tell their side of the story. Setting ground rules creates a safe space for open dialogue. Encourage each person to say what they want the other person to hear, and ask for what they need or want to change. Respect and acknowledge the validity of each person's experiences, feelings, and needs. Finally, be a neutral and active listener while each person shares their experience. It's essential that you give both parties equal attention and speaking time. Never take sides. Instead, try to summarize or paraphrase what you're hearing. Always ask if your observations and understanding are correct. Altogether, ground rules create shared norms and expectations, which create a space for open and empathetic communication. Taking turns sharing stories facilitates understanding. Employees can communicate the impact of specific behaviors or situations, and ask for what they need. Finally, being a neutral and active listener maintains the balance and offers an outside perspective. But how else can you keep the conversation moving forward? Here are 3 techniques to accelerate your progress toward resolution. The first technique is to use incomplete sentences. This involves giving employees sentences with omitted words that they must fill in with their own response. For example, you might prompt employees to fill in the sentence, "I felt blank when you blank," or even, "I need blank so that blank." This technique is great for soliciting a response from a reserved or withdrawn employee, or even curtailing the lengthy and convoluted response of a long-winded employee. Second is to find your baseline. If things get heated or employees are struggling to agree, then help them get back to a basic place of understanding. That's your baseline. For example, you might ask employees questions like, what are the goals of the project? What are the constraints? What are the expectations of employee conduct? Or how are work results being impacted? Most employees will be able to agree on a response to these basic questions, and that will help them to refocus on shared, big-picture items instead of on their own side or less significant details. And third is to compare and contrast. This technique involves asking each party to compare and contrast what happened in the past with what they'd like to happen in the future. For example, in the past, I've been assigned tasks at the last minute and told I must complete them by the end of the day. In the future, I'd like at least 24 hours notice before a task is due. Use this technique when you want to transition the conversation to be more future-focused and solutions-oriented. Addressing and effectively resolving conflict isn't easy, but with some guidance and direct communication, it can be done. Use these tips and techniques to help employees work through conflict effectively and come out on the other side a better team because of it.